Hi, I'm Kelly Fitzpatrick, and I want to talk for a moment about amends, making apologies. When we make an amends, we have to be really specific about what our part is. And we want to leave the part out about everybody else's stuff. Um, if we do mention it, it has to be secondary to our motive of making a full amends. So if we're making um, sense of a tangled situation that's hard to understand who did what and all of that, the simple thing to do is first clean up my side of the street, your side of the street. And only I can clean up my side of the street. What I do is I say, I'd like to talk with you. I'd like to see if I can make things right. Um, and I'd like to see about making amends. Would you be willing to talk to me about it? First of all, you need permission to have this conversation with someone, usually. Second of all, make sure we don't use the word but. Once we say what we're going to say, and then we start saying, but you, or but this other thing is more important, that but acts like an eraser. So everything we've just said, that but erases it and says, doesn't count, doesn't matter. So when we are trying to separate my stuff from their stuff, the best word to use is in another paragraph, separate from all of this, is the word and. And if this is where you are going to explain that there's a boundary involved, also make sure you try to use the words I and me rather than you. Once you use the word you, you're getting into the territory of accusations and it starts getting messy. What you could say is what I need from you is, and then blah, blah, blah. And there, set your boundaries, set your needs, and then you can talk about the separate part of it. But if you're going to use that word, but, you have just taken your amends and erased everything that you just said. The other piece of this is if you get really specific about what you're part of the mess, then it can become really clear what's leftover stuff that is not your mess. So be specific about what you're apologizing for and willing to make a living amends for. An apology and amends, of course, are two separate things. Apology is words. Amends can be a living amends where you're changing your behavior. You're actually trying to clean up your side of the street. So when you use the word if in the middle or at the end of your amends, that just turns it into words of an apology. When you use the word if, what you're saying is, I'm going to get real vague here. Oftentimes people will say, if I did anything to offend you, that really kind of minimizes our role in this. It vaguely kind of says, well, maybe you're at fault, maybe I'm at fault, but we're not going to figure this out, and this is just going to probably make it worse. So the word if, please try to avoid that when you're using that as part of your apology. If I did anything to offend you, then I'm really sorry, blah, blah, blah. That's not specific enough. You want to say, and I realize that I did this, and I realize I did that. And if you want to use the word if, then you say, if there's anything that I missed, please let me know. That's where you would use the word if, not to vaguely say, well, if you're still offended, or if there's, be really careful of that word if like you would of the word but. And then the most important part of it is there a way that you can literally clean up your side of the street, make things right? If there's not, can you do a spiritual amends? Is it going to cause harm for you to approach the person directly? Or is it best to do a living spiritual amends, not in contact with that person anymore? And not always is it appropriate to make a direct amends. Sometimes they don't want to hear from you ever again, or hear from me ever again. Or it's not safe for somebody to approach somebody else. Maybe I messed up my side when I was feeling responsible for my part in having been abused. But it's not safe for me to go back to somebody who's been abusive. And I mean literally safe. I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to get my feelings hurt by somebody. Um, and this is where, if you're getting confused about this, this is where we talk to our support. We don't do this stuff alone. If you have a sponsor, go to your sponsor. If you have a counselor or a mentor, go to one of them. Don't do this stuff by yourself. Don't go faster than you need to. Don't make amends on really big stuff before you're really ready to look at the consequences of what happened, to really look clearly at who did this, who did that, what's my part in it, and not be trying to get out from underneath the consequences by using an amends as a manipulation tactic to kind of say, well, I cleaned up my side of the street, so now everything else is your fault. So look at your motive. Check your motive when you're making an amends, and make sure that it's not just words, that there are actions attached to it. A lot of times people will say, and what can I do to make things right? And that's the other piece of a real living amends. I hope this helps. Take care. Thank you very much.